segue. So when we start to then talk about building approvals, and we start to look at nationally where we sit, so we do have an undersupply right now, and the story is actually getting worse rather than getting better. So this is why there's a lot of experts in this field, from the Housing Industry Association and all of the sort of the peak industry bodies are basically telling the government that we've got a massive problem here, and that problem is that even with sort of freestanding dwellings and also rental or medium and high density accommodation, you can see that the trends are quite low. So we did obviously have the home builder incentive scheme off the back of COVID, that really did spike in terms of people signing up to build or renovate their homes, and that's where you see that big spike happening in terms of the houses. But the trend since really the apartment boom that we saw between sort of 2013 and 2017, and that was also inspired by a lot of international investment and international buyers buying brand new off the plan units in our two big capital cities. You did see that sort of boom happening through that period, but now it's really tapered off, and there's no real appetite at the moment for an investor to be thinking about buying into anything from a new point of view in terms of these medium and high density unit accommodations. And that's problematic because obviously that's also a critical renting pool for a lot of our, say, international students and those types of things coming in. So that critical undersupply looks like it's going to get worse, even though there is, if you look at the latest update coming through in those sort of June numbers, you can see there that there's been an uptick. So it's trending towards the decade average, but that's still below
the
trend
band.
line. Yeah, there's still a fair bit to go, and we need to add to supply. So in one sense, we've got governments who are doing the right thing by looking at zoning regulations and those types of things. But unfortunately, on the other hand, what they're doing is that they spend so much money, they've got so much debt that they're taxing, and so that having 50+% of the value of property being in taxes and charges, that ultimately doesn't bode well for incentivizing subdivisions and building and development and windfall taxes, higher land tax. All of that stuff is a disincentive in terms of having that investment coming in to add to that supply. So they've really messed up the incentive side by doing that, and definitely the reforms around higher density and sort of some of those zoning planning regulations. That's a good news story, but unfortunately, until they can convince investors and owner occupiers and developers and builders to actually invest that money to get that stock online, the situation is only going to get worse before it gets better.
If we pause and reflect there, Ben, it should give. It's one of the reasons why property investors should have enormous confidence in the short, medium, and long term
Yes.
for the actual asset class. Because on the back of Mark's conversation last week, which was really, really important. If you haven't heard that, go and have a listen to that because it kind of dovetails nicely into what we're talking about here. But it just reminds you that we've got, to his point, there was an immigration influx that they've since tempered that just is woefully out of alignment with the amount of houses that we've got available for people. So it's still if you just blanket that and go anywhere, that's a problem because obviously Melbourne and Hobart have had a different story to Perth, Adelaide, and Brisbane. But it should just, for anyone who's got the jitters or anyone who's you guys are always optimistic about property. Yeah, well, because of the data that we're presenting that suggests that the asset class is systemically in good shape, and the fact that there's so many people coming here without enough houses will help underpin that as long as you get some of the micro stuff right, Ben.